America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Hassler.
Here.
Alderman Smith.
Here.
Alderman Mooney. Alderman Donovan.
Here.
Alderman Jokers. Alderman Jones.
Here.
Alderman Stupi.
Here.
Alderman Prince.
Here.
Alderman Rozika.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Very good. Look for approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Takes us down to our city administrator's report.
So, Mayor and I met with Ned Rawl, who, as you know, puts on the Christmas extravaganza, and to discuss with Citizens Electric our alternatives for Christmas decorating after citizens decided that we can no longer put things on the poles. It was a good meeting, and well, she's got lots of ideas, so hopefully there'll be a direction, and we're all gonna work together to try and get that resolved. I went to my normal meetings at SEMO Regional Planning in the Southeast Solid Waste District. You know that we participate in helping the county operate the recycling center by paying for repairs on their forklift. And they recently bought, it's not very old, so we don't give any bills. But anyway, a building is of a certain age and has roof issues, so they're going to apply for a grant to replace the roof at the recycling center, and that's a grant that I'm the chairman, and we administer those grant funds, so they're likely to get funded. The hospital had their groundbreaking ceremony yesterday, and it was cold and well attended, so they're off and running. I had taken the initiative to we've talked about this in the past. We require occupancy permits when somebody changes occupancy. And the reason we do that is because things happen between tenants. The tenant that left will take smoke detectors with them or something. So we want to make sure that every structure into which someone moves is safe for occupancy. It's a minimum standard. And the only way we have to monitor that is when the utility changes. Some landlords have developed the program of keeping the utilities in their name, so we don't have any knowledge of when the change occurs. And some of you were here, and you will recall that we made some significant accommodations to the landlord's concerns about that inspection process. For instance, if you've been inspected within the last year, you don't have to have a change of occupancy every time it turns over, but you have to have at least one a year. And that's just because they're paying that fee. Sometimes people say 3 months and they were having to pay it again. So we worked with them, and it's worked out pretty well. But we still had that problem of not knowing and sometimes finding out that people had changed sometimes more than once, and we had no knowledge of it. We had asked citizens years ago to address that. Citizens said in the interest of privacy, their attorney had advised them that they should not share that information. I have since learned that Ameren has a policy of working with cities to provide them with that information. And so I went, without going back to the staff who would just tell me it's not the policy, I went to a member of the board of directors and said, would you consider this? And he said he would bring it to the board. And they presented it at their last board meeting, and they are reconsidering it. I told them that we don't need to know who. We just need to know that it happened, and then we can contact the landlord. So we don't have any privacy issues because we don't really have the name of the new tenant, and that's not. And so they're taking it under consideration and said they will let us know. The audit was completed and distributed to you in the packet, the audit itself. In the past, the accountants come down here and kind of gone through the audit, and we all kind of sit and listen and maybe have a question or two. But it takes time in the meeting, and so I decided this year I would distribute it. give you an opportunity to review it. If you think if you desire for the accountant to come down and address any of the issues in the audit, he is more than willing to do so. And I would be glad to invite him here. But just take a while to review it, and then let me know if you have questions. We can get answers. If you'd like for him to visit us, he will do that. The assessor asked us to consider adding as a requirement of the golf cart and ATV sticker process. Have we discussed this? Whether or not they're current on their property tax. UTV. I said ATV. Right, whatever. It's her point, I don't disagree with her, is that it's in our interest as well as the county's to make sure that taxes are paid. And it's a reasonable thing to ask of somebody to provide evidence that they've paid their taxes before we issue them a sticker. It isn't currently a requirement. So in order to do that, we would need to change the ordinance and add that as a precondition of issuing the stickers. So if you're desirous of us doing that, nod your head. If you oppose it, tell me, and I won't. But if you want, I'll go ahead and prepare the amendment to the ordinance, and it's a pretty simple matter.
I have a question which is not that, but it pertains to this. Maybe you can refresh my memory. What are the requirements for insurance on those vehicles? Do we require, or are they required to carry, or maybe Eric can answer this.
Pam's the one who administers it.
Do they have to have insurance just like any other motorist?
Yes.
Okay.
And I thought we were requiring the taxes already. I thought when we started that, that's what the county was doing.
It's not in the ordinance.
Okay.
Okay.
But they are required to have insurance according to the order.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was the case, but I just wanted to verify that. Okay. Thank
Are they
you.
required to have helmets on the UTVs?
No, not on the UTVs.
So we'll move ahead with that. When I wrote this, I hadn't heard from AT&T on the easement. Since I wrote this, I got an email from them and they said they're working on it. A former sheriff, retired sheriff now, of my acquaintance once said, when my employees tell me they're working on it, I know nothing's being done. I'm not sure that's the case here, but at least he took the initiative to contact me. The hot issue around the state of Missouri with the pending adoption of state regulations has to do with medical marijuana. And I will tell you there's been some inquiries as to whether or not you can grow marijuana and where you can grow marijuana in the city of St. Genevieve. As it stands now, our zoning order, I call it progressive. It starts with agriculture. It's progressive in terms of the intensity of the use, and it starts with agriculture, which is the least intense use, and that's allowed in any zone district. Then you have R1 as the zone district, and R1 says you can do anything you could do under agriculture, and you can build a house, single-family residential. And R2 covers more houses, but also has the language that says anything you could do in the other, and it progresses all the way through that. So you get to commercial, and then industrial. Industrial is the one that doesn't go all the way back, but you get to commercial, and it says you can do anything in a commercial zone district that you could do in a residential zone district, which then includes agriculture. So I think growing a plant is agriculture. So I think you could arguably grow a plant in any zone district in Jefferson County, in St. Genevieve. That's where the sheriff was, by the way, that I'm in St. Genevieve, indoors or outdoors. But the next step in that business is to process the marijuana. And I think processing is manufacturing activity and would need to occur in either our light industrial or our industrial zone. We've been doing some research on kind of what the process is and what the byproducts are and kind of what you'd need. Every community and the legal staff representing communities is dealing with this. If we do nothing, I think you can grow marijuana anywhere. I think you're limited to the processing, to light industrial, and I think you could rent or own any storefront and open a dispensary because it's a legal product, and if you get a business license, you can do it. The question is, do you want to change that condition by adopting different, arguably more stringent regulations on, and it had to be through our zoning order, on this activity? It's a pure policy decision. And I don't have any recommendations for you now. I mean, you would say things like, if you only wanted marijuana dispensaries in limited areas, you would say they can only be in industrial zones. We have industrial zones, light and heavy industrial zones, so they could open there. If you don't want them close to each other, you could say, well, we've got to be so far apart from an existing one, so you don't have them, you know, on every other corner. You could limit the distance from schools or residential areas, or I don't know, there are lots of possibilities.
Can you limit the number of them?
I don't think so. He's shaking his head.
No, so everything that Mr. Thomas said, I would agree with, but I would keep in mind that there's a cumbersome process to go through to get the license. So what he's talking about is our zoning ordinances, and yes, in theory, you could grow it anywhere, but you can only grow it if you have a cultivator's license, okay, through the state. And the fee for that, I think for that one is, the initial one, I think is $10,000 for just to apply for it. And then the annual fee is $25,000. And then to have a dispensary, it's a $6,000 application fee and a $10,000 annual fee. So there's gonna, and the amendment requires 24, allowing 24 dispensaries in every congressional district. So yeah, we can get multiple ones here, but if you do the math, it may not be practical for you to have more than one in City Sunshine. But it would be legalized and regulated through the State Department of Health primarily. But you can, just like any other zoning ordinance, you can regulate the time, manner, and place, as long as it's not unduly burdensome.
For instance, you couldn't say you're only going to allow marijuana dispensary in an industrial zone district, and you don't have an industrial zone district.
Yeah, that would be a problem, yeah. So it's something for you to think about. All the cities are going to have to think about, okay, how do we want to treat this as a different business? You know, is it we're going to treat it similar to like liquor stores? Or are we going to treat it just like it's a retail outlet? And the like you said, the growing of the marijuana once they get licensed is probably agricultural, and they can set up shop anywhere. You may want to limit that in certain areas, but they're going to have certain space requirements. And I don't know, and I don't know if anybody knows they haven't approved the final regulations with regard to what they're going to approve and how they're going to score the applications. So they're going to have a proposal for where they're going to grow it. That has to be approved by the state. I don't know how they're going to administer that, but presumably you're going to have, they have a lot of requirements in the amendment, but they're going to have regulations with regard to, securing the facility and monitoring it and all that, I'm sure. So it's not going to be like a Wild West or something. It's not deregulated, but all the municipalities in the state have to start thinking, okay, now this is legal. Do we just want to treat this like just say any other business, or do we want to treat it differently? Because the only people that can buy are going to be, they're going to have a permit too, to buy it for medical marijuana. So you're going to have to have a license on you if you have it. and only certain dispensaries can dispense it, only certain places can grow it. And according to the Department of Health website, they expect the whole process to take until January of next year before it's actually for sale. That's why I was talking about, how long, because it has to be grown here. So, meaning in Missouri. So even after they're approved, they have to then grow it. And so there's going to be some period of time after all these permits are approved before the supply will exist.
So we could keep them out of residential areas, right?
I think so, yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a reasonable restriction on it. And the cultivation is a little bit different because it's going to be a licensed cultivator. And so an argument can be made that it's not necessarily, you can make an argument, I think it's not agriculture. I mean, you're growing a plant, but it's a heavily regulated process. And so that's an unknown to me right now, how if we restrict it to, as if it's not a agricultural use, if that's going to be a problem. But I think we just define it as something different than agriculture and say these things, because we can limit it to the license holders pursuant to state law and the regulations that it's going to be allowed only here. But if we're going to do it, we have to do it before there's somebody that applies for a business license. We can't do it after that, because then they're bound by the rules, and they're grandfathered in with the rules that we have in place when they submit the application.
I guess, Mike,
It's not really on the agenda.
if you say yes, let's start considering it. I guess my question to you would be, would you like for me to give you the full range of options, things that you can do, and then you can say, well, we'll do that, but we won't do this, and we'll do that. Rather than just, I think a work session would be an appropriate.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
Dave and I are going to work on putting work with Mark on putting some information together, and then we'll call it for a work session, and we'll have it.
So you saying we got maybe a year?
Well, you have to have it in place
But I mean-
well before a year.
Phone calls are being made as we speak
Because
about property in St.
They're
Genevieve,
gonna
so
have to
we need to
submit-
think about it quickly.
they're going to have a location to submit the application. And so when I say they're going to be selling them as of January, they're going to be
In hand.
asking for permits here months prior to that. So, yeah, if you're going to do it, we got to get it done this spring.
So you're talking about the inquiries and stuff already. I mean, is that from local, or is it, we stand a chance that out-of-town parties could?
I'm not aware of any local person who's expressed interest.
And I know
That's trouble.
I know we'll probably we'll talk about this in the work session, but are we going the route of cash crop? Is this being treated like tobacco? Do we know?
I mean, again, right now, if you came to me and said, can I grow marijuana in your community, I would look at the zoning order and say the only thing it's covered by, in my definition, is an agricultural activity.
Okay.
Now, Mark's suggesting that maybe we could
We'd
reclassify it.
Yeah, we'd have to classify it differently.
But
That's just with our ordinances. It doesn't mean that you can grow it.
But I think you
can't grow it because it's illegal unless you have the permit.
Right.
So-
Right.
now, the only distinction between aren't all crops cash crops to one extent or another.
But I guess I'm comparing it closely to tobacco. I'm kind of thinking,
Well,
Do certain people-
one thing that
It's
comes to my mind is even though this is legal, it's still technically a controlled substance, right? Okay, so, and I know we're gonna have a work session on it, but the first thing that is coming to my mind is that whoever is gonna grow this stuff, it has to be in a scenario where, what I'm thinking of is theft. I'm thinking
absolutely.
it's an open
Security.
invitation for a
Security
building to get
and-
broken into or a greenhouse, and the stuff gets stolen.
Eric and Jason and I and some
And
others.
I wanted to hear what the
have-
chief thought about it too, you know, I mean,
I think we know we're facing this, we're gonna have a work session.
we gotta deal
We
with
could
it.
sit and talk about this all night long.
Right,
so
we gotta
let's-
deal with it.
Okay,
let's
we're
do that.
gonna proceed.
Yes.
What I hear is, the status quo is not acceptable.
Right.
Right.
That's exactly.
Proceed with developing the information you need to make an informed decision about what changes we could make.
Right, we gotta get some rules together for this.
Okay. An alderman, who is not here tonight, asked me to survey the landscape and see what late fees other municipalities charge for their water, because someone complained to him that ours is too high. As you see, we are marginally higher than the surrounding communities, and Perryville needs another R. He would like for me, and would like me to ask you whether you'd like to amend our ordinance and bring our late charge into line with kind of what everybody else is charging, which would be 10% instead of 15%.
I think it's fine, 15%.
Well, I mean, the reason they did that years ago was because we had so many delinquencies. Has that number gone down that you're aware of?
I don't think so. I don't know what it was years ago. It's been pretty steady since I've been here.
I mean, the best solution to it would be to pay your bill on time.
A lot of them pay late fees that are higher than their bills though. Right, Pam?
I don't think the late fee can't be higher than the bill.
It's a percentage of the bill.
Well, but, I mean, you know.
A lot of them pay a lot.
I mean, I've paid
Because
it
they're
a few
late.
times.
Depending on the amount of the bill, it can add
my
up.
fault.
Happens once and will never happen again.
I was thinking reconnects. Sorry.
So I'm hearing, don't worry about it. Okay. The final discussion item, let me go ahead and report a couple of things, is I attended the tourism tax meeting, not the advisory council meeting, and Sandra will be reporting on that in a few minutes. We are facing the possibility of running out of salt, so we're going to have to buy salt.
Oh.
I'm just informing you that we're going to be buying salt. It's not going to be at the same price that it was when we bought it in the summer. It's going to be $1.05 a ton instead of $86 a ton. But, you know, we got to get it, and so we're going to get it. And we've got the money in the budget, and, you know, it's not a problem. It's just the first time we've had to replenish our salt supply in the middle of the year for a few years. Finally, I had not finally, but almost finally, you're familiar with the Lucent Built Best property and the fact that someone has bought kind of the back building. That hill there is covered with scrub trees and some pretty big trees, but the trees are causing, he's got a drainage problem that he can't address, and the trees are kind of jeopardizing the building, and he'd just like to clear that out, which he doesn't need permission to do. The problem is that the contractor said it would, the most expeditious thing would be to burn it on site. He's got that big open area where he can burn. But our burning regulations only allow yard waste, and only in 6x6 size fire piles. So we have to kind of grant him an exemption from that in order to do our zoning, our fire regulations don't kind of anticipate this large clearing activity. It's he can't take it to the burn site because the trees are too big. I told him I would ask your opinion. He would have to coordinate with the fire department should he do it.
That was my first question.
Yeah, and
But you get a gigantic pile back there, I mean.
And he's proposing to do it on a Saturday. Contractor wants to do it and kind of continuous, so that they aren't building a big pile and just lighting it on fire. They'll be doing it as they proceed. You know, it's a unique circumstance. It doesn't fit our regulations. I can say no, but You know, I don't know.
Is this just a cost-saving measure on his part, or I guess?
Well, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, his
Yeah.
alternative is to do it, take what he can to the brush site, because, you know, we have a limit on the size of the trunk, and find a place to haul off the rest.
Yeah.
Would he need a
And
DNR
that-
permit?
and that's
like we
okay,
have to
too.
get one?
I don't think so. It's 3/4 of an acre. I think DNR permit kicks in at an acre, but I informed him of that possibility and told him to check. But Bloomsdale Excavating is going to be working with him, so they know, they do that all the time. So if they need a burn permit, they'll get one.
My first concern is safety and it possibly spreading somewhere where it shouldn't be. And the volume of smoke that's gonna come off of it, but, you know.
Because it's green stuff, probably.
It will be
It's
green.
living stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so it's gonna burn a lot longer, and where's he talking about actually burning it?
If you're standing at the corner of Mary Ellen and 4th Street, and you look off to the left, you know, you've got that big open area in front of the building. He's going to go kind of back in the middle of that area.
I don't know if I'd want the fire chief to be notified.
Well, he can't do it without the fire chief, but before I send him to the fire chief, is it even something we want to go along with?
Well, I don't know. Without looking at it, it's kinda hard to say, but.
How many trees are we talking about?
It's a bunch.
Well, we got quite a few complaints with the stuff he's already burned down there.
He stopped doing that. He said, "This is going to be an awkward question since you already slapped my wrist." I said, "Well, okay, go ahead." It's your pleasure.
Why don't we just let the fire chief decide? I mean, I don't have a problem
I
with
think,
it anymore.
I think as long as you got
I
Bloomsdale
guess.
Excavating and
Right, that's
involved
my
in this,
point.
you got a reputable company. Now, if it was one of these fly-by-night, or somebody that's just tree trim or something like that, I'd have some concerns, but I think you
They're not
guys-
gonna be burning 20 trees all at one time. It's-
No, I don't.
No,
Yeah, he said
they're
it's
going to
gonna
do
be a small
it,
amount.
yeah, but it won't be 6 by 6. I mean, it'll-
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it.
I don't see where it's gonna be a problem.
You say he's gonna have Bloomsdale Excavating?
Bloomsdale Excavating is gonna be.
I also talked to them about the wind. I said, you know,
Yeah.
if you're in a day and the wind is blowing out of the east, you know, you're not going to do it because the houses are right across the
Right.
street. But normally the wind comes from the south and blows to the west, and you know there's the open field back there, and then you've got the railroad track, and then you've got the creek. I mean, there really isn't much between
Yeah.
them except what's on the other side of Mary
The other
Ellen.
side of the, right, there's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
That place on M Road where Troutman used to burn all their stuff, is that still in operation?
Okay. If you're willing to consider it under controlled circumstances,
Yes.
Ken and I will make sure that it takes place, it doesn't take place at the wrong time, and that it takes place with proper precautions.
I
So
think,
what if-
Safety is paramount.
Yeah.
that's right.
So what if we start receiving complaints from neighbors?
Well, I think we need to notify them.
We'll notify them, but it's temporary, you know, I mean, it's winter time. It'd be a little bit different since summer and houses are wide open. I don't see where you're gonna see a big complaint. I really don't, but.
Well, I think we do have to notify the neighbors.
Yeah, let them know what's going on.
And I'll make that be one of the conditions, is that he's got to knock on doors and.
Right.
Okay, final question is, did you make a decision, anybody having a decision on how you want your meeting space organized?
Which one was raised?
The only one that wasn't raised is the U-shaped one that goes this way, and the other two would be raised.
Do we have a decision, anything about moving our stuff over there to the county?
What stuff?
What me and you talked about? Moving the court over there?
Oh, no, we haven't.
We don't.
No.
I think until that decision's made, I don't know.
Well, that would affect how we lay this out.
Yeah, it would.
I mean, we can sit on it until I have my meeting.
U-shaped one seemed like it took up a lot of room.
Well, we got rid of the U-shape. Our former U is up in the park building right now. They got rid of that because they didn't like how, and then these were donated.
We can proceed with the remodeling and keep,
Right.
keep these tables and add whatever bench we want to add later. I mean, or not. I mean, that's
Yeah, I
up-
think
that's up to you.
yeah, I think we do that.
We'll go ahead and open it up and then it'll
Yeah,
just be.
we can go ahead and do that.
Okay. That concludes my report and my questions. Yes, sir.
This Christmas decoration thing, I mean, what is citizens' real objection?
One word, safety.
Well, but who puts them up?
They put them up, but they don't even want their linemen up there unnecessarily. They think they're not necessary. They think the poles, well, the poles are, you can see how, and there's a lot of wires up, especially the poles downtown.
As he described it, the 2017 electrical code and the national safety code divides the pole up into zones and tells you what you can do in each zone. And the top zone is the electric zone, and the next zone is the communication zone, and there is no Christmas tree light zone. But you'd have to be below this certain level in order to have them, where it's kind of unregulated. Well, to do that on these poles would put it dangerously low, because people would be bumping into it. So as a practical matter, our poles just aren't tall enough, and so my question is, we've been doing it for how many years? And he said, well, it's always been, kind of look the other way, and he said, but we just can't. They had an incident that kind of shocked them, and loss of life incident, and not in St. Genevieve. And he said, we just made a decision, we can't continue to do this. So
where does that leave us?
Leaves us without putting anything on the poles, on certain poles. And there's not many poles in St. Genevieve that we can put them on. Like these new poles they put up here, those poles you could probably put something on because they're taller. Rest of the poles downtown, anywhere else.
Pay them $3,000 a pole, and they'd be glad to put new poles up for us.
So this is not only happening here, but probably
Altenburg, everywhere they service.
Everywhere they serve. And somebody said Farmington, puts things on their poles. Well, Farmington owns their poles, so they can do whatever they want to. And we'll come up with an alternative. And one of is they're going to take those brackets off for us, and if we could find maybe, anybody's got a two-story building would be willing to put the bracket up on their building, and we can put the decorations up there, and if they'll plug it in for us, that's an option. I don't know.
Any other questions for Martin?
Christmas decoration designs is not. They asked me that when they interviewed for this job, and I told them I wasn't any good at it. So. It wasn't a job requirement.
Very good. Thank you, Martin. Takes us to our staff reports. Chief Bennett.
Good evening.
Evening.
I don't have a ton of things to report on. Everything is everything, I guess. So, does anybody have any questions?
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
After our meeting 2 weeks ago, I don't know if you got an email, I got an email from a citizen that stated, that, the county puts publications in the paper of what's going on, arrests made and stuff like that. And he says, well, I think a lot of people think, well, there's no problems in St. Genevieve because nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So, did you get that email?
I didn't.
Okay, but it's, I thought about that, and it is, like, well, there's nothing going on, the police aren't very busy, but you are,
Yeah,
so.
and that's certainly on me entirely.
Yeah.
When we had the police clerk position, that was something that Lisa did. And when that went away, it was something that I did, and then it kind of got away from me. We have started putting those back
I seen
in.
the report. I
And
saw the
some
report.
of our delay was dispatch changed their CAD system, and the way that we used to receive our report changed to about a 100-page fax that they would send to us.
Yeah.
So it made it not only not cost-effective, but also not user-friendly to
Right.
duplicate that. But they have changed over their system, and we actually have access now at our facility to their CAD system and have a printable form that we can actually email directly to them, and they can generate that information, put it in there. So we did start the first of the year, making sure that gets in there, and all the arrest reports and everything are back in there. So again, that is nobody's fault but mine. So
Well, it was just a question that was asked and brought to my attention. I thought, you know what?
we have addressed that, and you know, we'll certainly and we have increased some of the press releases as far as some of the more significant drug
Right.
arrests and
Right.
and things that we have. So we'll continue to do that. But thank you for bringing that to my attention. Anything else? Thanks for your time. Oh, did you have something?
Questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Gary. Steve Wilson.
Evening, everyone. During the month of December, we did a Claricone cleanout. It's an annual cleanout of the Claricone at the water plant. We do that for two reasons. One, to clean out the settled solids at the bottom, and the other one is to inspect the paint coating on the metal. During this one, we noticed that there's starting to be some small areas inside the Claricone that were repainted in 2010, that the paint's starting to fail and come away from the metal, starting to get some bubbles. I think we'll be okay for this year. I think it's something we can budget for next year, but we're going to have to probably do another inspection in the middle of summer to keep an eye on it.
The order of magnitude cost for that?
I don't have that number yet. I can look at the numbers from 2010, what it cost to paint the Claricone, and get back with you. Let's see, high service pump number 2 at the water plant, the electric motor failed. We had to send that to Van Venter. That motor was less than a year old, so it went back to the manufacturer to see if it was something that could be covered under warranty. Another thing there, the UV system down at the wastewater plant, I have prepared bid specifications for that, and I'll be reviewing them with Martin and getting those in the paper very soon.
I have a question.
Yes.
Been a while back, it was brought to my attention about some metal plates in the street on 6th Street. One was bent. I talked to you about it.
Yeah, they were rebuilt. They're done.
Thank you.
Steve, I just need you to educate me back up on this number 2 pump. Did you say it was less than a year old?
Yes, the electric motor was less than a year old.
So, will this be covered under warranty?
If it's deemed a defect in the manufacturing, yes.
Okay, and not to push you because I know you're busy, how long will it be before you hear back on that?
I was expecting an answer today before the meeting so I could report it, and I didn't get my answer.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Thank you.
So who decides whether or not it's a defect?
The motor was purchased originally from Van Venter Engineering. They felt it was a manufacturing defect, so they forwarded it to the manufacturer, which is you.
The manufacturer to conclude that it was a defect?
That's.
We don't know whether this is a defect, but would you look at it and let us know?
Yeah.
Nope, that's a lightning strike.
Van Venter Engineering's recommendation was it was a defect in the manufacturing process.
Good.
So.
They're on our side.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. So next meeting we should know more.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Anything else? All right, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Sandra?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am.
So, part of my report, I'll jump to the what do you do during these slow days report. I think at the last meeting, I told you that we were in the process of gathering all the commitments for verification of dates for 2019 tourism-related events, festivals, and special events in our community. And those have almost all been confirmed. And you have those there in your information. This time of year is when we also take all of those events and we enter them into a variety of online, basically informational systems through regional television, magazine, newspapers, and social media sources. So that's what the staff are doing at this time of year, and also confirming spring 2019 group tours and field trips. I've been meeting with the property directors about participating in the 2019 passport program, and with some changes with the museum, of course, closing down and reopening at the new location. They have assured me that they will continue to participate in that program. So with the exception of my note at the bottom with the furlough situation, at the last meeting I reported that at that time that we anticipate that the national park site will open in the month of June. I have not received any information to the contrary, but then our communications have been severely restricted in the last few weeks. So we hope that that doesn't move things further down the road, but we have to wait and see. Also, in the month of May, we're expecting the opening for the water park and the revision of the Museum Learning Center. Holiday Christmas Festival had a record turnout. I know many of the aldermen, the mayor and Martin, myself were all involved in that, and had a great event, and already talking about plans and changes for next year.
10,000 lights on that tree now.
10,000, yeah, I heard that yesterday.
Did you? Good.
So, yeah.
Totally call you.
I'm ready. We're going to get some people to wrap those limbs, and
Yeah.
you will be able to see the Christmas tree at the Welcome Center glowing from City Hall,
There
we're
you go.
pretty sure.
Yeah.
Probably
So.
from space.
Yeah.
Oh, and then I also wanted to just touch on, last week was especially busy also in economic development. I participated in the Missouri Economic Development Council's meeting, and the St. Genevieve IDC's annual meeting. It's always in January, and on Friday, a workforce development training group, working group that met over in Farmington at the U.S. Tool location. Yes.
So as included in my report was the attendance at, and Sandra was at the Industrial Development Corporation's annual meeting. Some of you may recall that the county and the Industrial Development Corporation kind of contract with the city for Sandra's time, minor amount of her time, I might add, but her time, and they pay us for that. At that meeting, they kind of asked her to do certain things, and could you explain to them what it is you'll be doing for the Industrial Development Corporation? It was, you were going to call on.
Well, so I've been participating in coordinating their business retention and expansion outreach program, and so you've probably seen this information in the paper, but we met with all of the leaders of the largest employers here in St. Genevieve County. There was a committee of people, so there were different people assigned for different employers, asking them questions like, what are some of your barriers to growth or expansion? What are you struggling with? And as everyone knows, I think probably workforce is the #1 concern on the part of all the employers. And so they're having to recruit employees from outside the city, outside the county, in fact. And our unemployment is lower than it ever has been. It's lower across the state as well. And so if you want a job, you've probably got a job in St. Genevieve County. And so one of the things that we're looking at is future workforce development, and that was actually the topic of all three of those meetings, one of the topics of all three of those meetings last year, at the state level, at the county level, and this workforce workshop that I went to on Friday. So one of the pleasant discoveries during this process was, since everything seemed to come back around to tomorrow's workforce, we had a meeting with the St. Genevieve R2 School District superintendent, assistant superintendent, the high school counselors, the career counselors. I'm sure that's not what they're called anymore, but we all understand that terminology. And they have a program that is called School Flex, and so that if there are seniors whose counselor agrees, their teachers agree, and their parents agree that they're in a position to be able to have enough credits and be well positioned to have an experience at a potential employer, or maybe just discover the ins and outs of a possible career, they can do that in their senior year. So that's very much been the focus of some of the recent meetings, especially with the school board, and reaching out through the parents and the counselors and so on, so that students who are interested in pursuing that can work it into their individualized education plan. That's not quite the right name for it, but thank you. And so, yeah, that was a big topic of discussion, and an ongoing topic, not just here in St. Genevieve County, but really everywhere, because the unemployment is so low, and our major employers are, they're looking to replace a lot of baby boomers, frankly. So Mississippi Lime, Tower Rock, even the hospital, they're all looking for the next step in their workforce and how to prepare them and how to bring them on board. So,
what kind of jobs are they having trouble filling?
Well,
we have a lot of people still traveling north every day to go to work.
I'm sure that is true. That does happen. So a lot of these are their entry-level positions. So, like, for instance, PIVA is very much always looking for assembly people. Mississippi Lime, they hire usually in groups throughout the year, so they put them all through the same training. The hospital, obviously those are medical positions.
I'm going to show my age here, but there was a program with Mineral Area College that I know that there's some developers or factory workers, factories that needed employees. And they had students, including St. John County, that could go to MAC, and all they had to pay for were their books, because the classes were free, because the idea was it was going to funnel them into these industries. Do we hear anything from community colleges or
the community college, yes, sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
The community colleges are very much a part of this whole discussion, and probably will. I don't know if anyone watched the governor's State of the State address last week, right? But they probably will be involved to an even greater extent, because the governor announced that he's taking workforce development out of economic development and placing it under the higher education system. So that will allow it to have probably the emphasis that it deserves, and leaders talking directly to leaders. So Mineral Area College has also been involved in these conversations, as well as some of the career centers like Unitech over in St. Francis County. And specifically last year, there was a program that Mineral Area College offered in conjunction with our IDC here and also St. Francis County, to offer a certification course in safety training for individuals who might be interested in pursuing pursuing something in an entry-level manufacturing. And maybe they even had a different kind of a job before and they were interested. It didn't have to be just students, it could have also been adults. And all that was reported in the Herald, and we coordinated students to go over to a manufacturing day and see the new age of manufacturing, because it's very different than what their parents were probably brought up with or what their expectations are. I mean, at any of our manufacturing facilities here, they're so clean, the expression "you could eat off the floor" applies to just about all of them. So it's a very different world. There's a lot of robotics involved. There's a lot of information technology, a lot of automation involved.
Is the IDC and yourself working with the local labor placement, like the workforce companies, to help people realize these opportunities are out there?
They've been participating in the meetings, so
Okay, thank you.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions?
That's fantastic.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Any committee reports? Any public comments? Takes us to our consent agenda. Pam's handing out the
Thank you, ma'am.
minutes from the closed session. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Takes us to old business. Bill number 4259, an ordinance approving amendment number 1 to the redevelopment plan for the downtown St. Genevieve tax increment financing district and authorizing certain actions related thereto. Have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have one? Do we
Right.
have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Sorry, Jimmy.
We'll have a roll call vote.
Alderman Smith.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes?
Alderman Jones.
Yes.
Alderman Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Rozika.
Yes.
6 yes, 0 no's, 2 absent. Bill number 4259 now becomes ordinance 4191.
Thank you. Bill number 4260, an ordinance approving a bid proposal for Keesler Police Supply Incorporated for the purchase of 13 Glock G17 9mm pistols and 9 Glock G43 9mm pistols in the amount not to exceed $22,872.90.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Jones.
Yes.
Alderman Stupi.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Rozika.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Smith.
Yes.
6 yes, 0 no's, 2 absent. Bill number 4260 now becomes ordinance 4192.
Thank you. Takes us to new business, Bill number 4262, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission municipal agreement for public improvements along Route Missouri 32.
What are they proposing there? What are they?
Right.
Replace the sidewalk,
Where?
whatever sidewalk is there now, go between,
Gerard and Park.
yeah. I don't know why they're just doing that, I don't know.
So they want to extend it.
Is there not a sidewalk there now?
Oh, there's that. it's not
The asphalt
really a
sidewalk
it's
thing.
just-
Right.
Told me they were replacing.
Replacing the sidewalk.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Takes us to Bill number 4263, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into agreement between the city of St. Genevieve and St. Genevieve County regarding 911 dispatching services for the calendar year 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Is there any other business? Any communications? Yes, sir?
I would like to run by the board and hear what everybody says, but obviously we have our thing on the ballot for the tax increase for the police department.
Yes, sir.
And I think we would be remiss as a board, since we're going to ask people for a tax increase, if we didn't maybe start going over the budget and looking at ways to maybe improve it. And I would like to initiate maybe some work sessions. I'd like to hear what other people have to say, to start reviewing some of these things and see if there isn't some areas that we can help the cause, is what I'm getting at. You know?
Before budget time.
Before budget time, because last year, we did our review and we were up against a wall. There was really effectively no time to make any changes. We got time now.
I agree. I think we talked about this last year.
Yeah.
And started doing it, now, this winter and into the spring, because everybody's trying to, you get to the point to where everybody's got to set their budget, so that's a little bit late to go over it and try to nitpick it and gather some here, but maybe we can, I think it's a good idea.
I say get started on it now.
Right. The normal process is for the department heads to formulate their request, and then you evaluate their request. Arguably, they could do that as well now as they could
Right.
2 months from now.
Right.
But is that what you want to do? I mean, you want to get those requests in? So
yeah, and and there's even been some talk about perhaps looking at the budget from a different perspective. We had a guest here, Micah Rousey, talked about approaching it from a different manner. And I would entertain thoughts about, or I would like a discussion about, maybe we need to look at it from a different perspective instead of doing it, well, that's the way we always do it.
Right, because it's been fairly stable for the last several years. I mean, there hasn't been any big changes, but that doesn't mean each individual board can't look at it and like Randy said, maybe look at it a little differently. So what would it?
I mean, you could just say, start at zero and have everybody come in and,
well, I mean,
justify.
I would like to hear the pros and cons of it. That's why I want it opened up for a discussion, Because I certainly don't propose to have the answers. I'm just saying, I think we as a board need to talk about it.
I agree. We talked about this earlier and decided after the first of the year, and I think we need to proceed with that.
It's after the first.
Right.
And you're going to blink an eye, and all of a sudden, summer's going to be over, and we're going to go.
So you're saying some work sessions then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about other work sessions.
Okay.
Why not get started?
Agreed. Okay.
Agreed.
All right.
Okay.
But we need a little bit of a basis to work with, though.
No, I think you need to have the input from the department heads on the table. What I kind of hear being said is to see if our current priorities are the priorities we want to continue to follow into the future.
Right.
I agree.
And that discussion can take place without numbers.
And I agree with that statement.
Or I get numbers.
Right. And assuming that this proposal gets voted in, people agree to go along with it, it still doesn't get us out of the woods. I mean, the fact remains, this isn't the end of the issue. And we need to start looking at things maybe from a different perspective and see what else we can do to help our situation.
And in the same respect, if it were to happen to not pass, we have to have a game plan.
Exactly.
Right.
We can't,
Gotta have a backup.
we can't tell those guys, hey, wait 6 more months while we figure this out. We gotta have something figured out.
I believe you be proactive, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's just, it's up to you guys, we need to put the time in to make it happen and work, it's gonna require more of your time, so I have a problem with that. I think it's well worth it. I think it's, it's a great idea.
Okay.
I mean, can we start with the basis of last year's budget and work from there?
Yeah, I mean, before you...
Just as a start.
Yeah,
right,
before you even engage the department
Right.
heads.
That's what I said.
Let's just talk about the pie.
That doesn't require any homework on my part. That's just calling a meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
And y'all bring your budget books with you.
Okay.
I think it's
Or
a
we'll
great
give you new
idea.
ones.
New ones.
Is there any other discussion? Well, if there's no other business, I'll call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.